Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com. SaaS, RaaS, and now NaaS. Meter is here with networking as a service. That's NaaS. To bring fast, secure, reliable internet, networking, and Wi-Fi to your warehouse. With just one monthly rate and no upfront costs, Meter allows you to focus on getting connected and getting moving. No installation or hardware cost, and just one monthly fee allows IT teams to do more with less. And most importantly, warehouses save time on network troubleshooting, avoid expensive downtime, and get an overall happier IT team. Meter is already powering connectivity for companies with millions of square feet, including Stored, GoBolt, Veho, Trove, and more. Why not add your name to that list? Go to meter.com/thenewwarehouse to get your first month free. That's meter.com/thenewwarehouse for your first month free.
Today's warehouse needs to keep inventory moving smoothly and quickly. Meet these challenges with on-demand warehouse labeling from Brother Mobile Solutions. Our mobile and industrial printers will help optimize your operations to achieve the speed, reliability, and durability your warehouse needs. With easy integration for existing warehouse technology, convenient portability, and upfront affordability, Brother Mobile Solutions is at your side when it comes to warehouse labeling. Try one for free today by visiting brothermobilesolutions.com/newwarehouse or click the link in the show notes. That's brothermobilesolutions.com/newwarehouse to try one for free today.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. On today's episode, I have two guests. I have Jake Heldenberg. He is the head of solution design for warehousing in North America at Vanderlande. And we have David Schwebel. He is the head of sales and business development at RightHand Robotics. They recently had a partnership announcement that they're working together on a couple different things. But we're going to talk to them today, and we're going to hear a little bit about from the perspective of the relationship between the integrator and the robotics company and what that means in our world, both from a robotics company standpoint, from an integrator standpoint, and then also from the operator standpoint as well. So definitely want to welcome Jake and David to the show. How are you guys today?
Doing great.
Absolutely. Good to meet you, Kevin.
Good
to see you.
Yeah, it's good to meet you and see you. Yeah, we are meeting for the first time here now, so it's good. Jake has been on the podcast previously as well, but quite a while ago, so it's good to get him back on too. So very interested to hear about this, but let's get a little kind of brief overview, background on both Vanderlande and RightHand Robotics. So Jake, why don't you start it off? Tell us a little bit about Vanderlande and what it is that you all do.
Yeah, so Vanderlande is, I like to say that Vanderlande is a solutions provider. So the number one thing that we focus on working with our customers is finding the right solution for them to make their business better, stronger, more profitable. And usually that starts within the supply chain and their network and what it goes on within the four walls of their distribution centers and their fulfillment centers. So our core task at Vanderlande, especially on the warehousing side, is to work with customers, identify processes that can be improved, and then, processes that are going to help their business moving forward. Things especially like differentiators, between one retailer and another retailer, what are those differentiators and how can we optimize them and make them better for them? Usually it's something, with value added services or whatever. You hear a lot about, hey, this product is a game changer, but a lot of retailers didn't become successful because they just bought automation, right? They became successful because they invested in the right automation that supported their business and the processes that make them different and better than their competition. So that's usually what our focus is, and that's a lot of what my focus is in my role as well, is to find those opportunities for our customers to improve their business and make them better.
All right, very good. And we definitely like the idea there of the right automation versus just any automation, right? I think that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of right automation, we have RightHand Robotics here, right? Father's Day yesterday, I had to throw in a little dad humor. So, so David, tell us a little bit about RightHand Robotics. We've had RightHand Robotics a couple of times on the show before, but tell us a little bit about, for maybe people that are not familiar.
Absolutely. So you can think about RightHand Robotics as we are a world that, we own the pick. We make robots so humans don't have to. We find ways to augment the fulfillment space, and we find the best way of doing that is applying robots in the fulfillment arena. Founded back in 2014, we're Series C invested, a very strong, very focused, commercialized company. But our entire world is all about picking and placing objects from one location to the next. It really does delight Vanderlande's customers. It delights other customers around the world. But in the end of it all, it's a marriage of the hand, which is how we pick things, the eye, how we observe it and see it, and the arm that moves it from point A to point B. There is an amazing amount of magic behind the scenes in our artificial intelligence and machine learning. But in the end, it truly is all about picking and placing the eaches that delight the consumers and the end customers.
All right, great. And thank you for that background, and definitely certainly, something pretty incredible, I think, that you guys have accomplished on that piece picking side, which has been such a challenging thing for the automation and robotics world, I think. And it's certainly a big lift in a sense of what you guys have been able to do. And we'll dive a little more into that piece picking aspect on the robotics side a little later in the conversation. But definitely very interesting to hear that you guys have come to this partnership. So I think before we kind of get into the kind of integrator robotics relationship, I mean, tell us a little bit about the partnership between Vanderlande and RightHand Robotics and how that's kind of working and how it came about. I'm not sure who the best one to take that one is, but I'll leave it up to you guys.
I can start with how it came about.
Sure.
So, throughout many, many years within Vanderlande, we're obviously looking, as noted, for the right automation for our customers. And part of that effort takes a lot of research, especially to invest that time and effort to look at, hey, what is the future of automation? What does that look like? And so we went down a path several years ago to start looking at all the various piece picking robotic suppliers. And through that effort, we identified a couple of key components. And so one of them was vision and grasping, the algorithms there. Another one was hardware, and another one was robot control. And through looking at all these various companies, we found that with RightHand, they had all three segments covered, which was really beneficial to our customers and to us, of course, because then, when they invest in this product and this piece of automation, you're not talking to vendor A, vendor B, vendor C for the three different components, or vendor A or B or what have you. You talk to us and you talk to RightHand. So it's a very simple approach for our customers. But we also found through the research, it wasn't just that they covered all three components. They also had very successful picking operations, because that is, of course, the key metric that at the end of the day, the KPIs for our customers is what's delivering. And so we set some what I would consider industry standard KPIs, but, wanted to push the boundaries a bit as well. And through a lot of that testing and through a lot of that effort, we found that RightHand continuously performed or outperformed those industry metrics. And so it made it an easy selection when you break it down on those two key fronts, where, okay, do they hit the KPIs and do they deliver basically an entire product for us? They delivered on both fronts. So from that perspective and how we got to RightHand, that's effectively how we got to RightHand.
Very interesting. I mean, I think it's a great thing to know too, that you're mentioning there, for the ultimate end user and customer, consumer, right? You want to be able to have kind of that comprehensive solution. Like you said, you don't want to have to be talking to multiple different vendors to try and pull this all together. And I know kind of interoperability and communication between solutions has been such a kind of hot topic. And, can I bring this vendor together with this one and things like that? So having a solution like you're saying, like RightHand Robotics, makes a lot of sense that can kind of cover all those bases in a sense in one solution. I think is a really good thing. So I guess, David, talk from your side a little bit about the partnership here and what it means for RightHand Robotics.
Absolutely. So about 2 years ago, RightHand Robotics actually did a very fundamental strategic shift. We made the decision to go from first-party integrations into the world of channel partnerships and working with system integrators. And it truly is the requirement of any subcomponent supplier in material handling to make the decision. Are you a first-party integrator and you take on the entirety of the history and the 10 years after you sell the project, staying with the end customer the entire time? Or do you work with the world's leading providers of system integration and technology? So RightHand made the decision 2 years ago to begin the journey. Vanderlande was immediately identified as one of the world's top providers of that system integration, material handling, and more importantly, forward thinking. And, well, frankly, RightHand needed to get taught. We were making amazing, robots, picking things, but we weren't at that time ready to totally jump into the world of delighting the customer with the most seamless and most simply integrated systems, to work and understand full project management and program design. And frankly, we needed a system integrator to come help and teach us. So that's actually what we did. 2 years ago, we engaged with Vanderlande and said, this is a mutual relationship. We can provide technologies and solution arenas that actually expand your entire robotic platform. You can teach us program management, design management, and in the end of it all, to the end customer, they get a seamless product that works day zero. It's not like they're working with RightHand and working with Vanderlande. They're working with Vanderlande, the system integrator. And it happens to be that RightHand is the quiet force that backs up the relationship. So we did this 2 years ago. We won an amazing piece-picking challenge with Vanderlande itself. And then through all of this, we've consistently just improved the way we go to market, how quickly we engage, how our aftermarket support works. And in the end, Vanderlande and their customers consistently keep buying with RightHand Robotics.
Yeah, interesting. And I think it goes to kind of that thinking that, focus on what you're good at, right? And I think like what you're saying in there is, as a RightHand, you guys are focused on the solution itself and being able to, continuously improve that and make that the best solution possible for piece picking put type of situation. And, instead of, having to now invest a bunch of money and resources into, building out this customer experience too, and all those things like that, it makes sense to bring on a partner who's familiar with doing that and doing that type of thing. So I'm curious from, I guess, an integrator standpoint and to the end consumer that may be listening here, Jake, what do you say to an operator or a company that's looking into solutions and they're thinking like, the integrator or, the solutions kind of company in between, like, why do I need this middleman in a sense, like in the relationship, like, why can't I just go direct to the company? I mean, what would you say there, Jake?
So the key, the biggest challenge, with implementing automation, especially with robots, is actually ensuring that all of your product that can be automated is automated and not mixed with the product that can't be automated. And what I mean by that is it's very simple. If you were to take SKU A, B, and C, and let's say SKU A and B can be picked by a robot, by RightHand in this case, and SKU C cannot, I can have an order with SKU A, SKU B, and that can all go to the robot. But as soon as I have an order that has A, B, and C, the solution provider, in this case, Vanderlande, needs to make the determination of how we handle that, because you have a couple of options there. You could still pick the SKU A and SKU B via a robot directly into, let's say, an order tote. And then you consolidate downstream your SKU C, which had to be picked manually for whatever the reasons are, with SKUs A, B, and C to complete that order. Or you can choose to just divert away from that. So any order with a manual pick item goes directly to a manual pick station. So you would pick A, B, and C together as a discrete order completely. But that's really important for the solution provider to actually understand that, to document that, and to educate the customers who are going to manage that system that this is the case. So if your order profiles change over time, what are the impacts to your system? Because again, there's never been, and I doubt there ever will be, a one product and a one-stop shop where it all just works great.
Yeah.
I think, if you go and let's say it's one thing to try and pick a box of, let's say, chapstick or something. You can pick that. You can pick some poly bags. You can pick a couple different things. But let's introduce, we talk about, e-com grocery as an example. Go try and pick a head of lettuce. That's going to be a completely different challenge. And so how do you manage that picking operation for those different types of products and make sure that you get the orders completed and consolidated correctly? That's the challenge. And that's, to David's point, that's what our job is, right? So we want RightHand to make the pick and to optimize the pick to be as fast as possible, as accurate as possible, and ultimately pick as much product as possible. But our job is to make sure the orders get correctly completed at the correct pick station and pack out and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, Jake, I think that makes, a lot of sense there because, it is kind of going back to what David was saying previously about, we want to pretty much focus on what we do and what's good at that and all the other kind of sides to that, like you were mentioning, changing order profiles and, matching up orders to the right solutions. If you have different solutions within the operation and things like that, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And I think, David, do you want to add something to that around kind of the orders and how does RightHand kind of fit within what Jake was talking about there?
Yeah, so Jake was spot on. Being able to figure out exactly the order profiles, how to separate the individual line items and how to merge them back together. With RightHand or any robotic piece picking company, often the end customer is constantly pushing the robot company to pick everything, to pick a Christmas tree along with being able to pick a small bottle of pills. What we figured out at RightHand is that with the help of Vanderlande, that order completeness actually matters even more than all the items you can pick. So we have a common customer together right now that if RightHand was only in there by ourselves, we could have picked maybe 60%, 70% of every item that they had. But our order completeness, which is to be able to complete the order and get it out in the single pick process, would have been low, would have been around 30 or 40%, to be perfectly honest. Right. So just because you can pick it all doesn't mean necessarily that you can actually complete everything that the customer wants. But when we combine forces with Vanderlande, all of a sudden, our pickability actually drove all the way up to around 60%. So every item that we could pick was a large process of the orders that could get out. And through our efforts together, we realized there was even more items and more tweaks and features that we could add to delight the customer. And we're actually pushing the number of SKUs that we can process with this customer to the 70, 75% range. The order completeness is pushing up as well. So over time, as we install and improve, because once our system's in place, it's actually still learning and still improving, we'll actually continue to increase that order completeness. We realize it's the hidden metric that system integrators understand, but robotic piece picking companies are just starting to get a handle on right now.
If you're in the warehouse game, then you've probably used some kind of floor tape before. Trust me, I've put down thousands of feet of tape in my career. And when it comes to putting down tape, you want it to stay down. That's where Mighty Line comes in. Their patented technology allows their floor tape, floor signs, and floor markings to take the beating that a warehouse floor gets and leave minimal residue behind when it's time to switch it up. You know that we are big on safety here at the new warehouse, and that's why we love to see all of the different options for safety markings and 5S markings in Mighty Line's product offerings. If you're going to 5S, use the best and get Mighty Line. Get your free sample kit at mightylinetape.com/new warehouse. That's mightylinetape.com/new warehouse for your free sample kit. Really, really interesting point there. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And, I can see how, I guess the robotics company might not be as aware of that as the integrator, because, the integrator is ultimately trying to get that best fit solution for the operator so that they can have that order completeness, right? And be able to get everything out the door when they're supposed to get it out the door. So I mean, along those lines too, I'm curious, David, from your perspective, and I mentioned it briefly before, but kind of one of the big topics at ProMat, I think this year was, interoperability and different solutions being able to work together. And obviously Vanderlande is utilizing multiple solutions in what they're implementing out there and putting into operation. So from a RightHand Robotics perspective, I mean, how do you guys feel about interoperability and how are you working to try and work with other solutions and make interesting, I guess, fits in the market happen?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
So, Kevin, and many of your followers know this, but the answer is actually in the gaps. It doesn't matter how amazingly fast you have of a solution arena or the conveyor systems or, AMRs or AGVs bringing it, you still need a human to complete the gap.
Right.
It has to pick something. It has to move something. It has to seal it, tape it, whatever the case. The really awesome thing is that RightHand, we've pushed hard in being part of that gap filler. We grab the item and we place it from a tote to a tote, or from an AMR to an AMR, or, from an APTO shuttle to an APTO shuttle, or the outbound case or tote, or whatever the case. We are a gap filler. And the really fun part about all this is that interoperability gets into the heart of, I have all of these different types of material handling equipment. And I do need one ubiquitous warehouse execution software or warehouse management software that allows me to switch my fulfillment process, sometimes even intraday, but often intraday or intra-week, so as I support my peaks and valleys. Conveyor systems are amazing, but they tend to actually get queued up. AMRs help to give you a way to alleviate the pain of being able to interweave orders, hot orders, and other details. And so you need, in the end, you still need a human to pick from something in place, or you need someone like RightHand Robotics to pick and place. And Vanderlande, in the work that they're doing now in interoperability, clearly identifies that they're understanding this. And it's really what the next wave of fulfillment is going to be. Not just locking yourself into bolts in the ground, but a completely ubiquitous ecosystem of fulfillment movements. And you will have these gap points, and the gaps will be replaced, or it will be augmented with humans supporting and robots picking.
Yeah, very interesting points there and perspective. I think it makes a lot of sense because, there are those gaps still, and we're seeing, as the time progresses that, some of those gaps are starting to be automated as well. And I think it's an interesting point there you had about RightHand Robotics where, it is kind of really taking that human thing that's, been such a challenge I mentioned earlier to be able to grip and things like that, and taking that and being able to automate that. So, I imagine within interoperability, because, a lot of times what integrators are doing is figuring out how to get different solutions to communicate with each other. Right. So I'm interested to hear from your side, Jake, too, on the discussion on interoperability and where do integrators like Vanderlande kind of come into play to be able to help allow more of this interoperability to happen as well?
Yeah, I think David did a good job of hitting a couple of key pieces there. So, like I mentioned before, one of our goals is to take a step back and look at literally what happens from the moment a product goes into your warehouse on the receiving side, to what happens from that point all the way to the point that that product has now left your warehouse. And that warehouse can be a fulfillment center, it can be a distribution center, it could be omni-channel, it could be any kind of warehouse. But the key is to identify every single process that is going to occur for every single product in your facility, or every type of, each business unit or department that you're managing throughout that warehouse. And so what we do is we look at the different products, and David hit on some of them, right? So we'll look at AMR or ACR, we'll look at shuttles, we'll look at conveyor and sorter, and then it's identifying those particular processes that give the biggest return right now. And as David talked about, there are gaps, right? So if you're working with a customer who has 10 or 15% of the product that they identify as non-conveyable, well, what does non-conveyable mean to them as well? Because non-conveyable could just mean it doesn't go on their existing sorter today. But a new sorter might fill that gap. It might actually take that non-conveyables down from 10 or 15% to 5 or 3%. And now you have a different look and a different viewpoint of, hey, this is what kind of automation I can actually put in my facility. And this is where the robots, the item picking robots can help now. So maybe I can actually put these, what were in a past facility non-conveyables, in my automation, my robot can pick them, et cetera, et cetera. The other piece that we look at for gap filling is, how do you manage the automation? So what I mean by that, we have a lot of experience with robots. And of course, we've done a lot with case pick and item pick. And through that experience, you learn that even all of your pickable products through automation can have an issue. It could be a packaging issue. It could be, a no read, so to speak. It just the label's been damaged. And what do you do in that situation, right? So again, getting rid of people and having this lights out facility it's a grand dream, but at the end of the day, there are always going to be some issues that arise in the facility, or some product that just puts the challenge at the maximum level, making it quite difficult to automate everything. And so we have processes already identified and in place to help with our customers who, hey, I just bought these 8 item picking robots, and now I have only these 2 manual stations because I have a nice product mix that can be more or less fully automated. You might question why we still have those 2 manual stations. And at the end of the day, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, customers still need the flexibility to make decisions on their SKU portfolio that will give them a competitive advantage moving forward. So if they have to move towards some particular SKU or product that hasn't, been proven to be taught in yet, or isn't, we don't know if it's pickable yet, well, that gives them the time to train the automation to understand whether that product will be pickable and still be able to meet the demands of their consumers and the customers. So there's a lot at play when we're talking to customers about, hey, not only what are you doing 5 years ago, what are you doing today, but what are your plans for 5 years from now and 10 years from now, to allow for that flexibility as well, to continuously, as David points out and rightly calls out, fill those gaps. So those issues that will arise within the warehouse. Because like I said, I would love to walk into a lights out facility tomorrow, but we're not there yet. And I'm not sure we're going to be there 5 years from now. So let's make sure that our customers are prepared for the 5 and 10 years from now.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, and I think it makes a lot of sense too. And it's interesting that you touched on the lights out warehouse, because I think even a couple of years ago, everybody was like talking about this dark warehouse, lights out warehouse, everything, and I feel like that conversation has kind of gone away in a sense. Like you don't see it like in the headlines everywhere and people talking about it. It's more about how do we kind of supplement these processes that, people don't necessarily want to do right now, but, or like enable employees to do, much more valuable work or things of that nature. So I think it's an interesting kind of change and transition there. And I think, Jake, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, that even like, people may say, well, I'm automating. Like, why do I still have manual stations, right? It's like, well, there's always kind of exceptions and there's always things that are evolving. And like you said, I think the key word there is the flexibility that you mentioned. I mean, you want to still be able to have that flexibility. At the end of the day, you still got to get that package to the customer, right? So you're going to figure out how to do that. If you need to, for whatever reason, circumvent automation or do something that's out of the ordinary, a human still needs to come in and be able to do that. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But I'm curious, Jake, like, I mean, on the discussion of the interoperability and getting different solutions to be able to communicate to each other. I mean, you guys are kind of doing that, and that's kind of where you come in to figure out how these all work together. But I mean, how often is it that you're either trying to maybe influence a solutions company like RightHand Robotics, or talk to a robotics company and tell them like, hey, like, you really need to come up with something to be able to work with this other company, other solution, because it would be really beneficial for, a couple different customers. Like, how often does that kind of thing happen? I see both of you guys laughing here, so that must be an interesting conversation.
I think David is can attest to this, but all the time. I mean, all the time. We're always, so, we work in a lot of different segments, of course, within warehousing, and you can typically, people call them food and fashion and general merchandise and e-com, and there's all these different segments and names for them. But the key is, again, for us, we want to continuously push the boundary. And we work with a lot of different customers who also, they're also trying to push the boundary, right? They want to push the boundary for themselves to continuously, again, improve their margins and make themselves different than everybody else and bring in more consumers. So they're going to push those boundaries, right? Which that means they're going to challenge us. And in turn, that means we're going to challenge RightHand. And I can attest to one thing that has been really good with working with RightHand in particular is that every time we've come to RightHand and say, hey, this customer has this product and, we're not so sure about it. Can you help us test it? Can we get feedback? Can we learn on it? And RightHand has accommodated those requests unequivocally. So I have no problem saying that, hey, we're going to push those boundaries and know that we have a good, reliable partner who's going to test and push those boundaries with us. So I smile because it's been good, and I smile because we do it all the time.
Yeah. All right. And David, I mean, you want to add to that? How about from your side, from the robotic side? How do you feel about these constant requests from Jake?
Pile them on. This is the reason why any robotic piece picking company, or more importantly, RightHand Robotics, works with system integrators. There's a wealth of knowledge out there, and there is zero reason to recreate that knowledge time after time after time. System integrators, Vanderlande, importantly, has that knowledge. They apply it ambiguously across the world, and that's the great thing. So with RightHand, we get challenged on a daily basis, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. And it's great. Vanderlande, easily. Yeah. Vanderlande just hit us with probably, here's 12 customers in brownfield arenas that our technology sings, but we actually have to go in there and do the next level of continuous improvement. The customer is not asking, I want you to go out and do a $100 million greenfield fulfillment arena, the next node in my entire supply chain. Yeah. I want you to take the existing 9 sites that we have with you and truly upfit them. Go back in, do the continuous improvement. And because our products have changed, or, order patterns have changed, customer desires have changed. So great news is Vanderlande calls RightHand and says, hey, here's these 4 different product types. And it's no longer, this is apparel or this is omni. It turns into this is the object and shape. We may not have gone out and pick it consistently in the world, like, it's with a, Vanderlande customer, but we've done it in the shop. And we show the stuff off, and Vanderlande immediately Jake goes, dude, it works. Yes, it works consistently. Let's show it to the customers. And so often what happens is it becomes a feeding cycle where Jake and team come back to RightHand and say, we need to do this for our customers. We say either we have done it before or done things similarly. And then together we delight the customer. And sometimes it's not even a new feature has to be created. It just literally is RightHand goes back into our repertoire of all the awesome R&D we've done, and we pluck something out from our past, and we commercialize it for Vanderlande's desire and needs and the end customer's wants, and we implement it just literally a few weeks later. So we are constantly being challenged. In the end of it all, as long as it's not a wet paper napkin, RightHand Robotics probably can pick it. Doesn't mean consistent or effective, but we can pick it. And then it becomes commercialized. And then we're able to do it time after time after time. And that's really the entire ecosystem that's required. So I laugh, Jake laughs. It's because this really is a multiple time a day request.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's great. And I think, the being able to have those challenges, I think really is kind of what moves the technology forward, and being able to create these different use cases and then tackle them. And I think, I guess if anybody's listening and they're looking to start a robotics company, they should go after wet paper napkins as a picking solution, right? It sounds like there's a big gap in the market there. So, I think, it's really interesting, but it's a great thing to see that and how that's able to kind of push forward the technology and being able to see the relationship between the two companies and how you're able to kind of challenge each other and push things forward for those customers out there. And I think it's really interesting that you touched on the brownfield aspect that's out there as well. And I'm curious, are you seeing more? Because I think for a while it seemed like automation and robotics was something that it would have to go into like a greenfield solution, right? But now you're seeing where there's more accessibility to these types of solutions. So you're seeing those smaller to medium sized businesses come in and say like, oh, I need to get on automation now, and I need to break things in. So tell us a little bit about, from what you're seeing out there in the brownfield arena. I mean, how are people kind of going about bringing in automation, and how are they working with it, and really kind of like where are they starting and where is their interest in? I mean, tell us, I guess, all about it.
So at least through RightHand, we see it as one of three different aspects. Greenfield is what you were just talking about, which is,
Sure.
We're stepping into automation for the first time. We're moving, let's say, from a manual or digital environment, and we're going immediately into the fully automated arena. Greenfield gets stood up, amazing experience. What happens, though, what we're experiencing now is that we're working with Vanderlande is doing this, where they're building the middle ground, the hybrid ground, which is, let's stand you up today. It's a greenfield that's being stood up in 2023, but it's ready for automation. It's ready for robotics. It was pre-planned. So as we fully stand you up in the next year, a year after that, you're going to come back in and say, I'm now ready to upfit for robotics. So it's brownfield that's pre-planned in the greenfield design. And that's paramount. Ready for automation is the next evolution of system design and system integrations. And so you can think about it as like the middle ground. So first one is greenfield. Second is greenfield planned for automation. So that's future brownfield. And then the third and final is all, the more than 4,000 warehouses around the world that are brownfields today. Existing automation is in place. And a lot of it actually gets done in a very quick way. You analyze it to say whether it becomes an ad hoc project. So can I get my robots in there or my AMRs or whatever the case? But the great news is a lot of times once you've productized your solution arena, like RightHand Robotics is a productized solution, we're able to turn around and say, here's our footprint. It's really, really small, and it works perfectly with the existing shuttle system you have in place or what other technology you have. So you can drop it and go. And that's kind of the key. You can plan for brownfields. You can plan for the existing designs, and you can capture a large portion of that market. You can support system integrators like Vanderlande, and quickly you have a new brownfield market that's going to come onto bear in the next 2 to 3 years. And then, of course, you have all those really awesome greenfields as they come up. So we see it in all three of the segments right now. Jake, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that, in short, I'll just say that Vanderlande has always been a very progressive company in challenging the boundaries, and fortunate to be a part of Vanderlande and seeing that growth. And to David's point, you look at roaming shuttles today and how many there are on the market. And Vanderlande released its roaming shuttle, Adapto, in 2014. And back then there might have been, I think, one or two others that I can think of that were really around. And now you see that's the shift, right? The entire market is saying, hey, the flexibility and the benefits that you get of a roaming shuttle are clearly paramount to that future success, is what David's talking about. And, we've pushed the boundary and said, look, moving forward, there should only be one-to-one picking. And a lot of that reason is, again, future-proofing the automation, so that if you don't buy the item picking robots today, because maybe you have uncertainty, maybe you have doubts, whatever it might be, or maybe your product mix isn't quite right for it. But if you need it 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, the pick station is already pre-built to accept that robot moving forward. And we've worked with RightHand to optimize that as well, so that our pick station in particular too can also just accept their robot, and you put it in and you get working right away. There's not this whole, I need to replace the pick station and redesign the conveyor, et cetera, et cetera. And that's, again, another one of those benefits of having a roaming shuttle, allowing you to make those on-demand decisions about your automation moving forward. So David's absolutely right. And like I said, fortunate enough to be a part of a company who has been so progressive to try and push those boundaries, and so forward thinking to go, look, our customers are going to continuously want to improve within their four walls today, but also tomorrow. And so what can we do preemptively as part of our planning to allow for that? What is going to happen? How is technology going to improve over the next year, 2 years, 5 years? And trust me when I say this, we're always looking at that. We sit in meetings and we're looking at what is the new technology today, and what will the new technology 5 years from now look like, and what should we be doing with our current products and with our partners to make sure that we meet those demands 5 years from now just the same as we meet them today.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, and I love the idea of being able to plan for the evolution of the operation and putting that in place, and even to the aspect of not just thinking about what solutions am I going to use in the future, but thinking about the infrastructure that I'm putting in place today. How is that infrastructure going to interact with those solutions in the future? Like you mentioned, the packing station or picking station example there, where you're not necessarily going to utilize the solution today, but it's geared up, it's ready to go to bring that solution in without having to now change that infrastructure too, which I think makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure makes the kind of the evolution and that automation journey a little more digestible for the customer, right, and the company that's investing in it, and certainly makes less of a heavy lift or expense, reduces the expense over time, I'm sure, in some way. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's very interesting to see kind of how the market itself is just evolving overall, and how people are kind of starting to tackle this. Because I think we're at a point where companies are not thinking about, when they need to have automation. I think they're realizing that it's now they need to have automation, but it's, how does that look over the next couple of years, and how does my operation evolve with that, and how do I set myself up now to be successful with that? So very interesting insights and conversations with the two of you, Jake and David, here today on the podcast, talking about this very interesting relationship that you have. It seems like very ongoing, challenging, pushing each other all the time to make the industry better for everyone, which I think is a great thing. So if people are interested in learning more about RightHand Robotics, should they just contact Vanderlande, or how does that work now? You guys have the partnership. Tell us a little bit about, I guess, what's the best way to get in touch with people from RightHand, from you, David?
So the best thing always is to contact your system integrator, point blank. Mm-hmm. Let's be very realistic. You go to those that you trust. But RightHand is doing an amazing amount of education in the industry right now. And we do have some end customers come directly to us. But inevitably, our very first question is are you working with Vanderlande? Are you working with this system integrator? And no, we do. We always ask it right up front. And in doing so, then we're capable of calling back in and saying, hey, Jake and your teams, let's have a discussion, because one of your customers just called us. It's a very simpatico relationship. But for anyone that is listening here today, yes, immediately go to Vanderlande's website and you can see the technology sing. You can come to our website as well, and you can see it as well. But yes, we'll help to direct you always to the system integrator that, in the end of it all, delights the customer, and we're here to support.
All right. Thanks, David. And Jake, what's the website? How do we do that?
Very simple, vanderlande.com. Very difficult, I'm sure, for a lot of us over here in North America to just spell out. So I'll spell it out for you: VANDERLANDE.com. So hopefully you can remember that and go to our website. And to David's point, on our website, you'll see all the different segments that we work in. Of course, we also work in parcel and airports, not just warehousing. So, we're a larger business than just warehousing. And inside of there, you can see a lot of different solutions. You'll see a bit about RightHand as well, and the piece picking. So, ultimately, if you go there, you should get everything that you need.
All right. So we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well, so people can easily find it. So Jake and David, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.